Great video. Right, I'm Tom Carey. For those who don't know me, I'm the senior sports correspondent for The Telegraph, and it's a great pleasure to be here today at the Conduit Club, and for all those watching at home, wherever you are. We've got a great panel today. I think we'll introduce them one by one, shall we? We'll get them up, starting with, obviously, Hannah Mills, OBE. I'm going to have to get these right now. Two-time Olympic champion, 1 silver medal, chief executive of Athena Pathway, which we're all here to talk about today, and also strategist for Britain's SailGP team. Ben Ainsley, Sir Ben Ainsley, 4-time Olympic gold medalist. Wears so many hats that I'll get this wrong, but yeah, chief executive of Ineos Britannia, America's Cup, and Britain's SailGP team. Just stop there. Let's carry on. Okay, and obviously we've got Chanel Milani, the chairman of the board for Cobham Ultra. And the Right Honourable Michelle Donnellan, MP, who is Secretary of State for the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. That's great. Right, Hannah, why don't we start with you? Obviously, we're all here today to talk about this new partnership between Athena Pathway and Cobham Ultra. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into this world? Because it feels like only yesterday that I was following you around in dinghies out in Tokyo. It was literally just a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
It's been a quick transition to this world. How's it
has. Ben, that's how it's happened.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, thank you everyone so much for coming today. We're really excited to have everyone here. It feels a bit like a reunion of people from the sailing world and outside the sailing world all coming together, so thank you. Yeah, I guess the journey with Athena Pathway started, well, probably with a WhatsApp message from Ben, actually, just before I started racing in Tokyo, the night before, saying, Hannah, we'd love you to join our SailGP Great Britain team after the Olympics. And at that point, in Olympic preparation, there is absolutely nothing else going on in your mind other than the racing the next day. So I ignored him, made him wait, and then replied afterwards, just jumping at the opportunity. Because for a female in the sport of sailing, you kind of do the Olympics and that is everything, and then actually there's not that many opportunities to carry on professionally. So in my head, I was off doing something else. So it was a huge opportunity for me to be part of the British SailGP team and start that journey. Simultaneously, the Women's and Youth America's Cup got announced as a competition, and so Ben and I got chatting about it, and it felt like a really good opportunity to build a pathway program for the next generation coming through. You know, there's so much excitement around foiling sailing now, and to build those opportunities and pathways with a pinnacle like the America's Cup was massive. So we started the Athena Pathway with that in mind, and it wasn't just about the sailing on the water, it was also about off the water, you know, providing opportunities into the marine industry for the next generation, and also female sailors. So yeah, that's the start of it.
That was a couple of years ago, was that you launched 2022, I think, Ben? You obviously were the founder of and this area, as the challenger of record, obviously, in the America's Cup, you were key, I imagine, in driving, you know, this Women's and Youth Cup this autumn. Obviously, the women's one's the first time we're going to have this. They've had the youth one before. But why did you set up Athena Pathway? Tell us a bit about that and how the Women's and Youth Cups have been set up this time.
Yeah, well, as Hannah said, thank you so much, everyone, for being here this afternoon. And it's really exciting to have this pathway program, this Athena Pathway program, because you know it's not the first time we've had a Youth America's Cup. The first Youth America's Cup was in 2017 in Bermuda, and we actually managed to win that as a British team. That's the only win we've ever had in the America's Cup as a British team. And really importantly, we were the only team that had a female on board. So it's something that I think has been at the core of the team since we founded it back in 2014. And the initiative to have the first ever Women's America's Cup is, of course, a huge moment for the sport and for the America's Cup. So we absolutely had to embrace that. We're incredibly fortunate to have someone as inspirational and talented as Hannah to lead that for us. And so with those opportunities in mind, being able to set this up, you know, with Chanel and Cobham Ultra coming in to support. We've got Chris Bake and Joe Grinley and Bertie Bickett, who are our board members here today. Got a fantastic core team that is only going to build from here.
I think we've got a video to show you guys, but it was obviously a very rigorous process, the selection process. We're going to announce the successful applicants. Dave, I think there were over 300 applicants for the
There were, yeah,
pathway.
over 300 applicants.
Should we watch the video first, and then we can talk about that?
Definitely. We're so excited to announce the sailing squad for the Youth and Women's America's Cup this year. It's really, really exciting. We can't wait to get sailing.
I think this is very much about creating that opportunity for younger sailors, for female sailors who have proven themselves, be that Olympic Games. You look at Hannah and Saskia, and so they've very fond memories of being in Olympic teams with both of them. And then someone like Nick Robbins, who's an incredibly talented younger sailor coming through. The Athena Pathway Programme has created now for them the opportunity to make that step up to professional sailing, to America's Cup sailing. But not only just the sailors, also you look at the shore crew, the technicians, the engineers that we need for the America's Cup. Having many of them with us in the senior programme, frankly, we'd rather they didn't go off to the Youth and Women's America's Cup, but it's absolutely the right process for them to go through. And they will be those superstar engineers, technicians of the future.
It was a really tough call, to be honest, to choose the final squad. Our performance coaches, Penny Clark and Chris Draper, did an amazing job narrowing it down and getting to the point where everyone was happy. But it was really tough, and there were some amazing sailors that didn't quite make it, but this is a pathway, and you know, we're very conscious we want to build for the future, and that was why I think the pathway was founded. So keeping people involved as much as we possibly can in other areas and finding different routes for people is really, really important part of the process. There's nothing like competing for your country on a global stage. Unbelievably excited to be a part of that, and yeah, to help support the youth to deliver their potential as well is a really cool challenge. We're 100% in it to win it.
Obviously, very difficult selection process. But it's 300 applicants, that's a hell of a lot. And the ones you've chosen, obviously, a few of them jump out at me. Saskia Clark, particularly, just because she's somewhere in here.
She's hiding, but she's here. Yeah, she is.
Right there. Just because I obviously, for those that don't know Saskia, she sailed with Hannah at 2 Olympic campaigns, and silver and gold they won in London and Rio. So it's nice to see you guys back together again. Just tell me a little bit about how you did eventually settle on that team, because it's incredibly difficult. I think in the end, I've got my notes here, there are 6 Olympic medals in the team, 3 gold, 3 silver, 22 World Championship medals. Over 50% of the team would have competed in Olympic Games. Obviously will have being the operative word, because some of them are competing in Paris this summer. It must be quite tricky getting the balance between the most competitive up-and-coming sailors and those that are still campaigning for Olympics. Yeah, totally. And with these types of boats, you might be surprised to hear, you can't just jump in them and off you go. They are actual machines that you need to know exactly what you're doing. So as part of the selection process, very few of the sailors have been in an AC40 yet, but you can see over there we've got a very basic version of a simulator, but you would have seen in the video a simulator down in Weymouth. So we've been partnering with WPNSA, with the RYA, with Andrew Simpson Foundation Performance Academy down there working on our program, and we've got a simulator down there. And that's actually what we use for most of the trials, and it's basically a full mock-up of an AC40. So you have 2 helms, one on either side. You have all the buttons that you'd press if you were sailing the boat, and then you have the trimming spots behind with exactly the same configuration. And it's been a massive, massive tool for us to get through, firstly, numbers of sailors, because we obviously had to get through quite a lot of people to ensure we had the right group. And we've had Chris Draper and Penny Clark, who have been our performance coaches, basically working through that process. And you know, it wasn't just about out-and-out sailing skills, because we're 4 people on a boat. It's about communication. It's about how you get the best from other people. All of those things that we look for in building a team. So yeah, it was a really rigorous process, and I'm really pleased that we've got to where we've got to, and we've got an amazing team. And how much time will they actually get on the water? Because obviously, if they're campaigning this summer, they're going to be pretty busy
Yeah.
in their Olympic classes. How much time will they get to spend out in Barcelona with you? I mean, how much time do you have on the water? Your AC40 is, you've got it now.
Yeah, yeah.
When are you actually going to be able to get practice sailing?
So we're in a phase at the moment where we're working really closely with Ineos Britannia, America's Cup Challenge, to get our sailors time with these guys out on the AC40 to upskill basically in a phased process, so that when we take ownership of the boat in April and we're set up full time in Barcelona ourselves, we've got a team that are really upskilled, and that's on the boats and also, as Ben mentioned in the video, off the water in the shore team as well. Because these are all new roles to pretty much all of us. So it's a big, big challenge to get to that place. And then, yeah, we'll be set up in Barcelona from April, training all the way up through to the Cup. And, you know, we've got 4 sailors who are part of the Olympic Games team going to Paris in 2024. And our team squad is 12. And there's 4 spots in the youth, 4 spots in the female, in the Women's Cup. And so we'll be figuring out basically, you know, will the sailors that have gone to the Olympics, will they be able to kind of bridge the gap? And so it's a bit of a balance, but we've got a really good pool to work from.
You spoke about selecting those female sailors. Obviously, this is a massive step forward for gender equality, I guess. You're obviously, with your Olympic background, you know, there's much more equality there. But in the America's Cup, you know, traditionally it's not seen many women in it. I know this is a subject that's very close to your heart. You've got ambitions to sail in the full cup one day as a skipper and helm, I'm sure. You'll tell us about that soon. But what does this mean for gender equality? And
it's a huge step. You know, the amount of people that have been like, oh, would it not be better if they just mandated in the men's, the America's Cup, that you have females on board? But actually, for me, having a standalone event for female sailors to really come together, push each other and show what they can do as a stepping stone is really, really important, because, you know, these types of boats came out, 13, 14 years ago in the America's Cup in San Francisco, all sailed by guys at the time, and we've got this huge experience gap of that amount of years, and so we can't just expect to be there. So what this does is provide that opportunity, and for women sailing, I think it's massive. But if I just look at my own journey, and I think, you know, what sailing as a sport has given me, the Athena pathway is about inspiration, it's about providing opportunity, and it's about supporting the next generation and new people to come into our sport. You know, that's what Ben and I are really passionate about.
yeah. Okay, well, we're here today, obviously, to discuss the partnership between Athena Pathway and Cobham Ultra. I think there's another video that we've got to show you guys just a little bit about the partnership in more detail, and then we'll talk to Chanel after that.
For Athena Pathway to be a success, we really need the right partners to come on board and support the journey. This America's Cup type of sailing is all about innovation, engineers, technology, and so for us, Cobham and Ultra were the perfect partners, the best of British when it comes to engineering and innovation, and so the synergy was just there from the off when we started talking about the partnership and what it is to run one of these boats and what's involved. You know, we need so many engineers on the boat to make it work. You know, you literally can't go sailing without a group of about 8 engineers to help you get it off the dock. So it was a really key part of the partnership, and for both of us, we're so dedicated to that next generation of engineers coming through and kind of encouraging people to take STEM subjects, because that's what we're going to need for the future in so many different areas to be successful as a country. So that engineering education side of the partnership is really, really critical. There's nothing like competing for your country on a global stage, and to have done it in the Olympic Games and now to do it in the America's Cup, the first ever Women's America's Cup. The opportunity to do that is massive, so unbelievably excited to be a part of that and to help support the youth to deliver their potential as well is a really cool challenge.
Yeah, innovation and technology is so important in the America's Cup. For those that don't follow it closely, it basically is, you know, Formula One on water, isn't it? It's, it takes a huge amount of expertise. Tell me a bit about how this partnership came about. Chanel and Hannah, why don't you start just telling, how did you team up with Cobham Ultra?
Yeah, well, it really was that engineering link and knowing what it takes to run these boats and knowing, as I said, what sailing in the marine industry has done for my life and wanting to bring and inspire through sport the next generation of engineers, because like I said, we are going to need so many more engineers to be taking we need children and young people to be taking STEM subjects and choosing STEM subjects so that they can become engineers to solve the problems of tomorrow. And there was just, when Chanel and I got talking about what we were trying to do and what Cobham and Ultra have done with their fund, which I'll let Chanel talk about, the synergy was just there.
Yeah, no, thank you, Hannah. I think clearly we're incredibly proud to be sponsoring Hannah and the team and at this absolutely historic moment, right? The first ever Women's America's Cup. As Hannah said, when we first chatted, it started with an engineering conversation. But I think if I sort of step back, if I speak on behalf of the engineering sector here in Britain, our secret weapon is our talent, right? And frankly, we're a little bit under attack from all these newer careers, based on digital and online that are seemingly or perceived to be cooler and more exciting than old, boring engineering, which is certainly not the case. And so, generally speaking, our corporate social responsibility mandate at Cobham Ultra has been in how do we bolster and build engineering with STEM skills more broadly in the UK. And as part of that, last year we launched a scholarship program with 8 universities across the country, and the idea there was to provide underrepresented students with an opportunity to pursue an education in engineering. So as we were chatting together, and Hannah was explaining, as she's just done, how incredibly science-oriented, engineering-oriented sailing has become today, it sort of spurred in us the opportunity to say, hang on a minute, why don't we use this historic event, the first ever America's Cup, and connect the dots a bit better for the children, right? How can we get out to schools and can we show them that, boring schoolwork, physics lessons, as my daughter says, oh, why do I have to do it? What'll I do with it? It's like, well, now I can show you what you can do with it, right? You can actually sail one of these boats at 100 kilometers an hour over water, which is cool and exciting.
Yeah, we saw some school children here earlier on the simulator. Ben, this coming back to you, it links nicely with the 1851 Trust, the Athena Pathways charity. Tell us a bit about that.
Absolutely. We started the 1851 Trust back in 2014. We started a cup team because, exactly as Hannah and Chanel are saying, and great to have Michelle here as well to talk about this subject, but we really didn't have enough engineers, technicians in the UK. And America's Cup, as we know, it's a sailing race, but it's also, if more so, a design technology race. And so we started the 1851 Trust focusing on the core STEM subjects to try and inspire the next generation to come through, get them to our base where we were in Portsmouth at the time. There were some great opportunities to understand how you design a yacht and what forces make the boat go faster, and certainly with these foiling boats. And that really worked well. And then alongside that, we developed an online platform to reach out to, we got out to over half the secondary schools in the UK. So it's a free digital platform to help the youngsters understand more about STEM. And they're not here now, they've gone back to class, but before we had some of the students from the Grieg Academy, and they've been doing a brilliant job getting youngsters out in the water that, from backgrounds that they wouldn't normally get the opportunity. And they've been racing around the UK now and internationally, and really doing a brilliant job. One of their top sailors, a young lad called Kai, has actually now come across to our SailGP team, so he's going to be down in Sydney, in Christchurch, and getting that opportunity to get involved with the team. So, yeah, we're really proud of where the 1851 Trust has come to. We've got actually Campbell Fleming here. I'm going to embarrass him now. You can give us a wave, Campbell. Campbell's our new chair of the Trust, doing great work. So it's very exciting for the future of the sport.
Michelle, coming to you, hearing that must be music to your ears, because your department, which obviously was set up, I think, a year ago, this is exactly the sort of fusion, I guess, that you're wanting to see between business and elite sport, pushing science, technology and innovation.
Absolutely. I think for too long, young people especially have been surrounded by these stereotypes that if you go into roles like engineering, etc., they're very just one certain thing, and they're not exciting, and they're not dynamic, and they're not able to combine some of their outside passions as well with their career. And this program helps highlight that that's completely not true, and that you can mix some of your hobbies with your career, and that actually going into roles within STEM can open up so many different jobs in so many different sectors and things you wouldn't necessarily think about. And I think that's so important for raising aspirations and awareness, especially amongst our young.
Yeah, and Chanel, tell us a bit more about the sponsorship and how this is going to work going forwards now.
Yeah, happy to. So I guess you could put it into three buckets, right? I mean, the first one is the classic, which is we're sponsoring the team. So that's help funding the training, the infrastructure, everything the team needs to get them to the start line. The second is all around STEM. So I think we want to, again, exactly what everyone's been saying, which is we'll launch, in partnership with the 1851 Trust, a schools competition and a schools roadshow. And Hannah and the team have kindly agreed to donate some of their time. And so we'll get them around the country, get them meeting students, create a competition that sort of connects, again, these dots between schoolwork that they're doing and the physics of sailing and the science of sailing, and try and bring this to life in the school community. And we'll try and do that between now and the Olympic and the America's Cup, which should serve as great inspiration. And then the third bit of it is bring the engineering back in. So I think we've got some talented engineers at Cobham Ultra, and so we're going to second some of that talent into the Athena Pathway program, and then spend a bit of time focusing on all this data coming off of these boats to make sure that we're using it in the best possible way and hopefully bring the cup home.
Yeah, well, that's the key question, isn't it? We heard in that first video, I think, in it to win it. Are we going to win it?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure everyone in this room is a very competitive person in their own right, but yeah, we're very competitive people, and 100%, this is history happening. It is the first ever Women's America's Cup. We've got to defend the Youth America's Cup. We've got Nick Robbins here in the room, who's actually the perfect example of what we've been talking about. He's an engineer. He's working with Ineos Britannia at the moment in their engineering section, and then he's coming across to us as one of our incredible youth talents on the boat, racing on the water. So, we're absolutely in it to win it. And I just want to say, thank you firstly to everyone in this room who's supporting the program, and everyone from the sailing industry and beyond for coming. And, Ben and I really are passionate about the next generation and creating legacy and building relationships with everyone who's involved in the sailing industry, so we can provide more opportunity, more equity, more inclusion in the sport of sailing on and off the water. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
I think we've got time for quite a few questions, probably. Chanel, you haven't got a flight to catch anymore. I know last night you were threatening to run off to get a flight.
I've got a bit of time.
Yeah. Have we got any questions in the audience? If not, I will certainly step up with it. Oh, we've got one back there.
Yeah, a question to you. Having been involved with sponsorship for sailing for probably 20 years now, Ben, one of the things we've noted is that the press see it as a little bit elite. And if anything, what we've seen today and the people that participate in it, it's not an elite sport, it's a sport for everyone. I was brought up on the wrong side of the tracks in New South Wales and a keen sailor now. So what do you think the press, and more importantly government, can do about encouraging more people into sailing, given this great maritime history of Britain?
It's up to me. What do I think about the press's... Sorry, I thought you were asking Ben. Didn't you say Ben at the start? What do I think about the press's view of what? Say it again.
I think you were saying it's about time you stepped up and started.
Sorry, I was completely zoned out there.
Sorry about that.
Repeat
just like my wife.
Yeah.
Let me repeat it.
Yeah, I do.
What do you think we can do as an industry
to
help the press promote sailing a bit more in this country?
Ah, right. Yeah, that's a very good question. It's Yeah, excellent question. It's a battle. It's a battle I constantly have with my editor. I think it's a tricky sport to cover because and particularly the America's Cup. It's so. It goes in these long cycles. You have these long down periods where there's nothing happening. It doesn't have a narrative that just continues all the time. It's the same with the Olympic sailing. So it's very sporadic, and it's hard to dedicate resource to that all the time. But when it's big, it's really big. So I think it needs, and I think SailGP actually is doing this at the moment, it needs a sort of a constant narrative that builds all the time. But highlighting these sorts of partnerships is incredibly useful, I think, in terms of demonstrating that it can be a sport for everyone and not just elite sailors. And certainly my experience of the sailing community, it's not all elite at all. So I think it's certainly, I think when you look at SailGP, and Ben, you've probably got views on this, there's really exciting opportunities for the sport to grow in a media sense as well.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think, and Hannah, everyone's view on this, I think, would be the same, that the advent of foiling boats has made it hugely exciting, particularly for the younger generation. Whereas when you look at the America's Cup, when I got involved with the America's Cup, the maximum speed we get out of a boat was about 15 knots on a really good day, and even then that was getting a bit hairy as the boat just got deeper in the water and started wiping out. But now we're doing speeds of 100 kilometers an hour plus. That's pretty cool, and I think that combined with the televisual improvements, technology that's gone into how the sport is showcased, it's a much, much more exciting and accessible sport than it ever has been.
But I think, if I might chime in, I think it's a really good question you've asked. And I think the onus is on the sailing community, right, and all of us to make sailing more accessible and to actually find ways where, you know, just like Ben and Hannah are doing, are going out there and happy to connect with, you know, kids from all over. You don't have to be on the right side of the tracks to meet them, to connect with them, to be parts of these programs and initiatives. And I think we just need to lower the bar, because frankly, sailing does bring a lot of, you know, very exciting skills to bear, right? And it's becoming more and more technological, and I think it has a lot to offer, frankly, to the youth. So I think the onus is on us, and hopefully partnership like this, which will truly, you know, bring Hannah and the team around the country, will start to show people that it is much more accessible than they think.
And you mentioned the government in there as well. So I used to be Secretary of State for the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, and my own takeaway from that period of time was that having real-life role models influence young people and really show them and lift up their aspirations and talk to them about things being achievable and how they could go and carve out a career in these types of sectors really lifts the glass ceiling. And I don't think anything else can really replicate that in terms of trying to change perceptions.
Yeah.
Any other questions out there? Not for me, hopefully, because we've got 6 Olympic gold medals here between these two. Any others? Ben, I was going to ask about, Hannah mentioned quotas before, because as a journalist working in sport, I've always found this question quite an interesting one in terms of bringing women into the America's Cup. What do you think the best way is? Is this having, you know, an all-female women's America's Cup the best way, or should you mandate having a female sailor on board the America's Cup boats and try to accelerate their involvement that way?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I think Hannah's always been very much about it being a meritocracy, so it's not tokenism. And this gap where the female sailors haven't had the opportunity to sail on these kind of boats, very much now with the Women's America's Cup is trying to help fill that void. But the great thing about the America's Cup boats, there's a number of positions there which aren't, they're not focused on power or physicality. They're very much about skill set. And so if we give the likes of Hannah, who clearly has the talent and the ability, the time, then there's no reason why not, that they can't be racing in the Senior America's Cup in years to come. It's the same in SailGP. It's about giving the female sailors the access to the boat, so they've got the same hours as the male sailors. And then absolutely, why not? There should be no reason why not.
And what about the future classes of the America's Cup? Because on the big boats, but you know, there are certain roles that, as you say, could only be performed well you know,
Well, it's a physical
realistically,
element to it.
there's a very
It's
physical,
hard.
very physical element to it. I mean, you could either, you know, as there are on the EC40s, they're battery, aren't they? So you've got four crew, isn't it? 2 helms, 2 trimmers.
That's right. Yeah.
You don't need to necessarily have all that grunt on the big boats. I mean,
You've got to be very careful here now, because the grinders union, or the cyclers union, as we call them, might have a problem with that. But yes, I mean, you could actually take the cyclors off the boat and use just full battery power. At the moment, about half the power on the boat comes through batteries, so they control the foil arms and the foils and the rudder that we use to fly the boat, but all of the aero functions, so the sail, the mainsail, the headsail in and out, the traveller, that's all powered by cyclors. So we could take them off. I think you'd have a few grumpy ex-Olympic rowers on your hands if you did that.
We're going down a bit of a rabbit hole here, but some of those guys aren't even sailors anyway, are they? Come across from other sports. So, you know, if this is the elite of sailing, is it right that you have a rower or a cyclist who's moving straight into an America's Cup boat?
So, some of them, but not all. So we've got someone like Neil Hunter, who was actually with the youth team when they won the Cup in 2017, and then went straight into the senior team. Actually, I would like, and I'm going to embarrass Nick now, but Nick has made a similar jump into the senior team. He was only with us for a couple of days, and straight away the engineering team down in Barcelona said to me that, you know, Nick's amazing. He's fit in straight away. He's right at the top level. So that's, you know, there are opportunities for these youngsters to come straight through and make it into the senior team, and Neil Hunter did that. Neil Hunter is an extreme athlete, but he's also a very, very talented sailor. And there are certain roles with these cyclors that they may be performing a sailing function on the boat. They might be controlling the pitch, bow down or bow up of the boat, or some of the sail trimming components. So it's a development of those skills that we've got to see. I mean, this class of boat is still relatively new. I think it's new class of boat for 2021 Cup. It's going to be fascinating to see where the boats go for the next Cup. Actually, interestingly, this morning, the teams have to announce 2 months before they're going to launch the boat. So the New Zealanders announced today they're going to launch their boat in 2 months' time. And you'd expect to see the other teams between that sort of April to June period, the other teams launching their boats, and it'll be fascinating to see what they come up with.
Have you got a date? Are you telling us?
We have a date, but I'm not going to tell you.
Well,
You're going to find out quite soon, because we also have to announce 2 months before we launch our boat. So you'll find out in the pretty near future.
any other questions?
Michael Grade, erstwhile sailor, once upon a time. If you take the America's Cup, and you take the Women's America's Cup, and you take the Youth Cup, how much of the effort in terms of on the water and off the water and manufacturing and construction, how much of that is British technology and British based?
I better answer that. It's all British technology and British based. So our partners with the America's Cup team are Mercedes Formula One team based in Brackley. So our designers and engineers have been there for the last 2.5 years. That's been an amazing project because we've had to merge a Formula One team and an America's Cup team. Formula One team is typically around 1,800 people, and an America's Cup team is about 100 people. So very different structures there. Trying to merge that has not been an easy task, but we've come a long way over the last couple of years, and the attention to detail that you get from a Formula One team, particularly such a successful team as Mercedes, is phenomenal. And that's really helped us hone in on some of these areas of the boat, such as the hull of the boat is an obvious one, the foils, the aerodynamics, which, as you'd imagine, a Formula One team are particularly skilled at. So that's been a really interesting collaboration. The boat just left the yard this morning, where it was built down at Jason Carrington's yard in Hythe, near Southampton. So it's very much British designed, engineered and built.
Matt Chin, Planet Sail. Hannah, question for you. Can you give us a bit of an overview as to what the Women's America's Cup event actually involves? Because it's not a straightforward replication of the Cup itself, is it?
No.
So a little overview of what's involved, and who do you know about from a team's point of view? Who are you going to be up against?
Yeah, 100%. So the Women's and Youth Cup events. The Youth Cup will take place in September and the Women's Cup will take place in October, kind of overlapping with the Challenger Selection Series and then the America's Cup for the women's event. All the America's Cup teams, so there's 6 cup teams, have to put forward a women's team and a youth team, so that's 6 teams. And then there's 6 spots for teams who come from non-cup represented countries. So we've got teams from Spain, from Holland, from Germany, from Australia. I could go on. So there's 12 teams in total for both the youth event and the women's event. And the race format is slightly different again to the America's Cup, which is purely match racing. So we're going to have fleet racing. So we're in 2 pools. The cup teams will be in 1 pool racing against each other, and the non-cup teams will be in another pool racing against each other. The top three from each pool will go through to some more fleet racing, and then the top 2 overall will do a match race final. So in terms of sailing skills, it's a big challenge, because you've not only got to be the best at fleet racing, you've also then got to be the best at a 1-race shootout match race. So it's definitely going to test us, and hopefully we can go all the way and get to that final.
I think I've just been told that is all the time we have, so we're going to have to leave it there. But that was on a very positive note. You are going to go all the way, I'm sure, and win this autumn. Thanks again to Michelle and to Chanel. It's great to announce this partnership today. Really exciting. And best of luck to Hannah and Ben later this year in your respective cup campaigns. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone for coming.